It's kind of a weird day today. So outside here, it's just a little chilly to be doing any outdoor work. A lot of our water puddles out there are still frozen over. So it's a little chilly to be doing anything outside. But then when we come inside here, we also got our delivery truck smack dab in the middle of the shed still, blocking that door so we can only get small equipment in and out. So the goal today is to get this truck up and running, hopefully, pull this guy out, and then hopefully get the New Holland track to hook up to a Horsch Anderson disc. Should be a good timeline because by the time I get done with that truck here, the shop should be done with the drive shaft. We're getting that balanced. I'll throw that guy in, and hopefully she's up and running by the end of the day. I'm going to clean up the shed a little bit and see where we are after that. That should last us a day or two. So we're gonna take a little side project here after cleaning the shed. This is our 1940 John Deere Model H behind me. My dad likes to buy collector tractors a lot of times. We can put them on display at our corn maze. Kids love them. It's a great place to take pictures. This guy, you can tell by the dust here, has been sitting in our shed for the entire winter, pretty much. It had some carburetor issues. I thought I fixed those. It didn't completely fix it. I went it through again. Can know the carburetor's working. It was still having some issues, so we're gonna check this thing out, just go through it really quick, see if I can't get it running. If I can get it running, we'll move it around a little bit and just get it out of the way here so it's less cluttered. Since this tractor's actually semi-nice, I hate getting gas on the paint because that just causes it to bubble up, and I just, you know, I want to keep it looking at least a little nice. I know the carburetor's good. What happens with the tractor is it'll fire up just fine. I made sure there's fresh gas, everything is good. I will fire the tractor up and it runs beautifully for about 30 seconds and it'll sputter, 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 die. And I was really puzzled at first. I knew it was a fuel cutting issue, but the carburetor was clean. So I decided to take out the other variables, switch the spark plugs, fresh spark plugs, both sides. They were gapped correctly, put them back in, started it up, same thing. Would run for about 30 seconds, sputter, 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 die. But I couldn't start it right afterwards. So after it would die, I would try to start it again, it wouldn't start. I'd let it sit for a couple minutes and then it would start back up again. So I knew it had to be a fuel issue. And I just kind of set it off for a long time. But above this water separator, a fuel bowl here, I guess it's a fuel bowl, but on the bottom here it collects a lot of sediment and stuff, and I started noticing that there's a lot of junk in here, and before it gets into this fuel bowl it has to pass through a filter. There's a very coarse screen inside the tank, and then there's a fine screen above this actual fuel bowl. So I believe that that screen up top there's got to be plugged because there's a lot of junk getting down in here, and if there's junk getting into the fuel bowl, that screen's got to be plugged up. So I'm assuming that I'm starting it. It's running the bowl out of fuel, the carb bowl out of fuel. It's not able to refill fast enough. You let it sit for a little while, it fills back up, it'll start again, run a little bit, run it low, and repeat. So what I'm doing right now is just draining the petcock fuel bowl area, dealy-hoo up there out. I think that there might be a screen in there plugged. It's draining fuel fine, so I'm worried that that might not be the problem. I'm still gonna pull it though to check it out and see if anything's funky there. I can look from the top of the tank here and I can definitely see that there's some junk in that in-tank little screen there. So we'll see what this does. So this is the screen I just pulled out from the top right there, and it looks absolutely terrible. It's got tears through it, and even the areas that don't have tears through it are just super plugged up. So I'm probably gonna have to replace this guy. Okay guys, so I just pulled the little petcock fuel bowl assembly out, and it looks pretty gross. So here's the whole fuel bowl assembly out of that John Deere Model H. You can see this guy wasn't too bad. I've seen a lot grosser, but there's definitely some sediment in the bottom. This screen here was all ripped up. My finger goes right through it, so that's gonna need to be replaced. And this guy was just disgusting. Let's see if I can get inside here. There's just, well, I'm not sure if you guys are gonna be able to see that well, but this thing is just packed full of gunk. So I'm hoping that was my issue. I really am, but who knows? So pretty much this guy's gonna be put on halt again. If I really do want to move it that badly, I can always just push it. It's not heavy. So this guy's gonna get put on hold. I'm either gonna have to order a rebuild kit for that thing, or I'm just gonna buy a whole new one. Parts for this thing don't tend to be that expensive. So I guess it's just getting put on hold again, and we're gonna go to focusing on that truck. So I'm not positive, but I believe a wise man once told me that the torque spec for these guys is a star pattern and a whole lot of ugga-duggas. Something like that. And I believe these axle nuts here are very similar. So the differential is in the truck now. That all got tightened down. The sealant's good there. I put the axles in. That's all tightened down. That's good. We're gonna let the sealant seal up there for a little bit before adding any fluid to that guy, just because that's what the bottle says, and we don't want to cause any issues with any leaks there. I gotta do some plumbing here from our power steering pump to our reservoir up to this guy. So I gotta cut some hoses, and over here is where I have the replacement for that. So here's the old hose. We got to cut some of this guy up and hopefully make it look similar. And I think it's supposed to go something like this guy to that guy? And maybe this guy to that guy, and something like that, with some hose clamps thrown in there and some stuff to spice it up a little bit. So I'm not an expert by any means, but I think we may be ready for a test run of the new power steering pump. So we got the reservoir hooked up top here. Now I believe how the flow goes is, this is your reservoir for your power steering fluid. It's going to flow down your suction hose into your power steering pump down there to the pressure line. The pressure line loops back around and comes in here to your power steering, flows through there, then comes up this pressure line all the way up to here, which gives you your hydro boost, and then the unpressurized or excess fluid comes through this line back through here all the way down here to your return. Now what I would like to do is put this return line into a bucket, plug this line off somehow, and then just crank the pump over by hand to hopefully pump through fluid and to kind of either bleed the system or get all the old junk out of there. So I'm gonna try to find something to plug that off. So what I ended up doing was I cut off the end of a rubber glove finger, tightened it up against the bottom there, put a hose clamp on it, and we're gonna see if it's gonna hold here. So as you can see, I got this thing filled up way over the top. So we've got the reservoir filled. We got this line down in this bucket down here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bump the motor over a couple times. We're gonna take a visual marker where that fluid level is, and we're just gonna bump the motor over. And we're just gonna see if the fluid level drops. And you can see it dropped all the way down to there. And we got fluid coming out down here. And it's not terrible looking, but we're gonna probably flush a solid quart through it just to make sure that all the air bubbles are out of the system and that everything all the fluid that's inside of here is clean. We'll hook the lines back up together, start it, and see where we're at after that. So what I did was I hooked up all the lines for the power steering pump, started the truck up, everything seemed fine, cranked the steering left, cranked the steering right, everything felt nice and smooth, really easy to turn, pushed the brake, the hydro boost worked fine. There was a brake light on, which I was wondering if it had some type of module to sense brake pressure, not from the hydro boost, but in the brake lines, because I did replace a line on this. I still haven't bled it yet. I pushed the brakes. They actually didn't feel that spongy, but there was a brake light on. I filled the reservoir all the way full, and that primary brake light came off. But my sister's coming over. We're gonna bleed the brakes really quick on this guy. And then the shop just called, drive shaft's done. We'll throw that in, and this truck should be ready to go then. We'll hopefully get it out of here today for the first time in probably right around a month. So that'll be exciting. Get the shed back. Down. Up. Oh, we sprung a leak. So we got slowed down quite a bit when we were bleeding the brakes. I noticed another line was leaking, this main line that goes to the actual caliper. I had to run the Napa. They didn't have the exact part, but I rigged up a way that I should be able to get it to work fine. But it definitely switched us from we're for sure getting this done today to hopefully we get it out today to we might not be able to, but we're gonna do our best to keep it going. So I know I had a bunch of big plans for today of stuff I was gonna get done. This truck ended up taking a lot longer than what we thought it was going to take. We had a blown brake line, that took a while, that was unexpected. And just going through and making sure everything was fine. The drive shaft gave us a couple issues. It took way longer to fill up the differential because our pump that we normally use to fill differentials wasn't working, so I had to pour it all by hand. And that fluid is just so thick, it's basically like grease, so it took a really long time to fill that. So we gotta wash this tomorrow. We have a project for it. It's getting late now, so we're gonna call it a day here. But hopefully we get done with that other stuff some other time. Hopefully tomorrow after we pick up some of the stuff that we need to pick up. But that's definitely going to get done in the future. As I've said before, I'm just really trying to get comfortable holding the camera, get comfortable talking to the camera, because it's really hard when you first start out. So that's all I got planned for today. Thank you guys.